I still remember the day my world shattered, the moment I realized that the one person I loved the most, the one I had sacrificed everything for, had turned against me. My son, my only son. The same boy whose tiny hands once held my fingers with love, now held my bank card with greed. When you raise a child as a single mother, you give pieces of yourself away every day, your time, your dreams, your peace. And you do it gladly, believing one day, when they grow up, they'll look back and say, "Thank you, Mom." But that day never came for me. Instead, my story began with betrayal, cold and sharp as broken glass. It was a quiet morning when I went to check my bank account. I had been saving for years, every spare coin, every extra hour of work, all tucked away for one dream, to finally buy a small house of my own. Nothing fancy, just a little place with sunlight and peace. When I opened the banking app, I thought it was a glitch. My balance was zero. Completely wiped clean. My heart stopped. I blinked, refreshed the page, checked again, but the numbers didn't change. I felt my chest tighten, my hands shake. I called the bank immediately, praying it was some system error. But when the representative spoke, her words hit me harder than any storm. The withdrawal was authorized by your son. My son. I couldn't breathe. She read out the transaction details, a huge transfer to his account, and then, multiple charges from an international travel agency. I dropped the phone. He had emptied my entire savings, money meant for my security, my retirement, my future, and used it to travel abroad. I felt dizzy, like the floor had vanished beneath me. The son I raised with love had stolen everything from me. When I tried calling him, his phone went straight to voicemail. I messaged him, but there was no reply. Hours passed, then days. Finally, his wife, Clara, sent me a message. "Mom, please don't be mad. We just needed a break. We'll talk later." A break. A break after destroying my life savings? I could barely see through my tears as I typed back, but she didn't reply again. Later that week, I saw pictures on social media, the two of them smiling at the airport, holding hands. His mother-in-law was with them too. I couldn't believe it. My son had not only betrayed me, but he had taken that woman, the one who had always looked down on me, who whispered that I wasn't good enough for her daughter. I spent nights crying alone. Days blurred together. I stopped cooking, stopped talking to neighbors. The betrayal felt like poison spreading through my veins. But after a while, something inside me hardened. Tears wouldn't bring back my money. Pain wouldn't teach him a lesson. If my own son could turn his back on me, maybe I needed to remind him who I really was, not just a mother, but a woman who built her life from nothing. I began to plan. First, I gathered every record, the transfer details, messages, everything. I spoke to the bank, to a lawyer, to anyone who could help. They told me it was technically a family matter. Legally, it would be difficult since I had once given him access to my account for emergencies. But this wasn't an emergency. It was theft. That's when I decided I didn't need the law to get my justice. I'd get it my way. I started small. I blocked all contact, his number, his wife's, even her mother's. I knew they'd come back when they needed something again. People like that always do. Then, I started over. It wasn't easy. I was in my late 50s, with no savings and a broken heart. But I had one thing they didn't: resilience. I found part-time work at a local bakery. The smell of warm bread in the mornings gave me a strange comfort. I learned to smile again, even if it was just for the customers. Slowly, I began saving again, little by little. Every dollar I earned became a piece of my strength. Months passed. I didn't hear from my son. Not a call, not a message. Until one day, he did call. It was evening. The bakery had just closed, and I was sitting by the window, sipping tea. My phone buzzed, and when I saw his name flash on the screen, my heart skipped. I hesitated but answered. "Mom," his voice cracked through the speaker. "I need your help." Help. The word made me laugh, bitterly, softly. Help. The last time you needed help, you drained my life savings. He went silent. Then, after a moment, I heard him sniff. "I'm sorry, Mom. Things didn't go the way we planned. The trip, It was a disaster. Clara left me. Her mom took all her money, and I'm broke. I don't even have a place to stay. For a moment, I wanted to feel pity. The mother in me stirred, the instinct to protect, to forgive. But then I remembered every night I went hungry to save for him. Every time I skipped something I wanted so he could have what he needed. And I felt cold again. I'm sorry, son, I said quietly. I don't have anything to give. He sounded desperate. Please, Mom, I made a mistake. I'll make it right, I promise. But promises don't refill empty bank accounts. I told him I'd call him later and hung up. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind was torn between anger and love. But by morning, I made my decision. If life wanted to teach him a lesson, I'd make sure it did. So when he showed up at my door a few days later, suitcase in hand, eyes red and tired, I opened the door but not wide enough to let him in. He looked thinner, worn out. Mom, I've got nowhere else to go, he whispered. I stared at him for a long time. The boy I once rocked to sleep was gone, replaced by a man who had learned too late what greed costs. I let him in. But not out of love, out of strategy. He thought I had forgiven him. But forgiveness wasn't my goal. Redemption was. When he stepped inside, I could still smell the perfume of betrayal on his clothes, faint traces of a life he'd lived without me. He looked around my modest home, noticing how simple it was, how quiet. I had rebuilt my life with peace, not luxury. He dropped his suitcase in the corner and sat down, rubbing his face. Mom, I know you hate me. But please, I just need a place to stay until I get back on my feet. I didn't answer right away. I poured him a cup of tea, the same way I had when he was little, but this time, my hands didn't shake out of love. They trembled from the storm of emotions inside me. He began talking, telling me how everything went wrong. How Clara's mother had convinced him to invest in some business abroad, promising they'd make a fortune. How the deal collapsed. How Clara had left him when the money ran out, taking the last of his pride with her. As he spoke, I realized something. His pain wasn't from guilt. It was from loss. He wasn't sorry for hurting me, he was sorry he'd been hurt in return. I listened quietly, nodding now and then. When he finally stopped, I said only, "You can stay, but under my rules." He looked relieved. "Anything, Mom." "Then listen carefully," I said. "You'll find work. You'll pay for your food. And you'll treat this house with respect. You took everything from me once, don't take my peace too." He nodded quickly, like a child being scolded. For a while, things were calm. He found a job at a repair shop. He left early, came home late, and for the first time in years, the house didn't feel empty. But the walls still remembered. Every night, when I passed his room, I wondered if forgiveness was truly possible. Could a heart that's been broken ever be whole again? Weeks turned into months. Slowly, I began to see a change in him. He'd help me cook, fix things around the house, and sometimes, he'd sit beside me in silence, the same silence that used to feel like punishment now felt like peace. One evening, while I was folding laundry, he said, "Mom, I got my first proper paycheck today." I smiled faintly. "That's good, son." He hesitated, then handed me an envelope. "It's not much. But I want you to have it. To start paying you back." I took the envelope, not for the money, but for the meaning behind it. Maybe, just maybe, the boy I raised wasn't completely gone. Still, deep inside, I knew a lesson wasn't learned until it left a scar. A few weeks later, fate offered me that chance. A letter arrived addressed to me but meant for him. It was from Clara. She wrote that she regretted leaving him, that her mother had betrayed her too, taking her savings and vanishing. She was alone now and wanted to start fresh. When I read those words, a cold smile formed on my lips. Clara, the same woman who had laughed at me behind my back, now wanted forgiveness. I handed the letter to my son that evening. His eyes widened as he read it. "Mom, she wants to come back." I nodded. "So it seems." He looked torn. "I don't know what to do." I looked at him steadily. "Do what you think is right. But remember, not everyone deserves a second chance." That night, he couldn't sleep. I could hear him pacing in his room, whispering to himself. By morning, he had decided. I'll meet her, he said. Just to talk. I didn't stop him. Some lessons need to be lived, not taught. He met Clara at a cafe downtown. When he returned, his face was pale. She only wanted money, Mom, he said softly. She said she'd come back if I could provide stability. I said nothing. Sometimes silence teaches more than words. That was the day something inside him broke, not from me, but from the weight of his own choices. Weeks went by. He worked harder. He stopped talking about Clara. And one morning, he came to me holding a small box. Mom, he said, I've been saving. I want you to have this. Inside was a simple gold pendant, nothing expensive, but engraved with one word, forgive. I stared at it for a long time. My throat tightened. He looked at me, waiting. And for the first time in years, I saw my little boy again, not the greedy man who had stolen my savings, but the child who used to run into my arms after scraping his knees. I took his hand. Son, I whispered, forgiveness isn't given once. It's rebuilt every day. You're on the right path, just don't turn back. He nodded, tears glistening in his eyes. Life settled into rhythm again. But I still had one last lesson to teach, not out of anger, but out of love. Months later, on his birthday, I called him to the kitchen. The table was set with his favorite dish. He smiled, surprised. What's all this, Mom? Sit, I said, gesturing to the chair. After we ate, I handed him a folder. This, I said, is my new bank account. You'll notice your name isn't on it. Not as a co-owner, not even as a beneficiary. He frowned, confused. Mom, I don't need, I stopped him. Listen to me. This isn't about money. It's about boundaries. I forgive you, but I'll never give anyone the power to destroy me again, not even you. I want you to learn the same. Build your life with your own hands, not someone else's. He looked down, ashamed, then nodded slowly. You're right. Then he surprised me. He pulled out another folder, neatly prepared documents. I already did, he said quietly. I opened my own account months ago. I'm saving for a house. For you. My breath caught. For me. He smiled through tears. Yes. You always wanted your own home. I want to give that back to you. I couldn't hold back anymore. I hugged him tightly, tears spilling down my face. Oh, my son, I whispered, that's the only revenge I ever wanted, for you to become a better man. Years have passed since that day. He's married again, to a kind woman who treats me like family, not an inconvenience. They visit often, bringing my granddaughter along, who fills my quiet house with laughter. Sometimes, when I look at them, I think about the past, about betrayal, loss, and the long road back to trust. People often ask me, how did you forgive him after what he did? And I tell them the truth, forgiveness isn't weakness. It's the strength to rebuild without bitterness. Because revenge, when done right, doesn't always destroy, sometimes it transforms. My revenge wasn't shouting, or punishing, or watching him fail. My revenge was becoming untouchable emotionally, financially, spiritually, and watching him rise from his own mistakes, stronger, humbler, wiser. That's the justice life gave me. And if you're listening to this, and someone has broken your trust, remember this. You can lose money, you can lose people, but never lose yourself. Because the moment you rebuild stronger than before, that's when your story turns from tragedy into power.